Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the after show portion of this podcast where we were discussing apps and everything related to apps. We promised that we were going to talk about translation apps and language apps in general.
Hey.
So which is your favorite of all the translation apps?
I like Word Hunt. I don't know if you've heard of that
So
one.
we were talking solely about translation right now.
Right now, just the
Okay,
translation. Yeah, the translator. So we have Yandex translator. You said Word Hunt.
So it's like, you can put an English word in there and you have like all the possible, translations you can definitely have. So I really love it.
I think I've heard of it, but I've never used it before.
Me neither.
Do you have to pay for this?
No, it's free. And, there's a web version, there's an app, but it does not work without internet. So
What about you, Benjamin?
I keep going back and forth between Google Translate and Yandex Translate. Yandex Translate is great because you have so many examples when you translate a word, but sometimes it doesn't quite hit the spot.
You know this moment when you're in the this level of knowing the language, when you know that you can't deal without like Google Translate, but at the same time you understand that Google Translate isn't helping. Like you're doing it wrong, Google Translate.
yeah.
I mean, I do have to say it's extremely impressive how these organizations have built up this huge,
Absolutely. But
huge project, and
But
it's
still,
not easy.
Google Translate is good when you have lower level of a language.
Yeah.
Because the higher it is, the more difficult it is to use the Google Translate because it doesn't have a good database of idioms and idiomatic expressions.
Right.
So for example, when it comes to very simple words, I can use Google Translate in my Spanish. But now that I'm slowly getting to the level where we have some idioms, and I put this idiom into Google Translate and it could not translate it into any language that I speak, like neither into English
sense,
nor in
yeah.
Russian. So I'm like, you ain't helping.
I think it depends on the language too. Because, for example, I was trying to use Turkish and English. And for example, I was asking some friends in Turkey, like, how do you translate these words? But Google was giving completely different translation.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because when I went to China many, many, many years ago, I went to a hotel buffet, and maybe I've mentioned this before, I can't remember, but the translations for the food items were so funny.
Oh yeah, it always is.
yeah, definitely.
And it said something like, give birth to the bun, to the bun to
Exactly.
eat it or something.
In China, I use this feature of Google Translate where you can like point the camera at something.
At a picture
And
or something.
exactly.
Oh god, it saves life.
It saves lives, but in China it does.
There are two more apps that I like. I use Multitran, even though it does have some crashings. And I used to use it when I was working as a translator as well. So in a translation agency, I know
It's
that
good. It has options.
really
It has
is.
Multitran is a classic. When I started learning Russian, the professors at my university, they were all using Multitran.
There's one more app and a website, which is Context Traverso.
I love it.
I love it so
really
much because it
good.
doesn't
It's
give you
really
a
good.
translation of a word, but rather it shows you examples where this word is used.
Like
and
how
the
can you use
translation of
it?
the whole. Yeah, so you can see the usage of a word in context.
Well, that's why I also
That's the
like
best.
Yandex, because it kind of does that as well, but Context Reverso has a huge
I love
backlog
it.
of...
Yeah, but still, I guess there's a disadvantage. Like there are different examples, like even from the non-speakers. So
Yeah, but at least sometimes it's good to see, the context if you
Absolutely.
have
I love
absolutely no
it.
idea how
Yeah,
to use the
yeah.
word. So yeah, these are.
Well, especially if, like in English, we have so many words which have many different meanings, like the verb to set.
Oh,
You would
yeah.
definitely need to see that in context.
right.
Or the word scale. I remember
Oh,
in
yeah.
Russian, that has so many different
Translations,
meanings.
yeah.
Well, scales or scale, but...
What I love about Multitran is that it shows you the translation depending on the area. Let's say
Yeah,
in automobile industry, it's this. In, let's say, this area, it's
Yeah.
this.
Yes, that's why I would say I would definitely recommend Multitran to learners of English, precisely because of that, because you have all the different glossaries, as they're called.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They have a huge aviation glossary as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course they do. Sure.
So yeah, I'd say, but for day-to-day use, I quite like Yandex. But the problem I would say with Yandex, where Google is better, is that it keeps history. It keeps track of all the words that you've researched. So I think Google Translate is great for that. So I can go back to the start of my history, and
I didn't know it could do that.
it's great. And that way you can revise words and keep them fresh in your head. Whereas Yandex does keep a history, but I think it's only 25 words, and then the history clears.
No idea. I had no clue.
So in that sense, Google is superior. And also you have the app, the extension for Google Chrome, for Google Translate.
When you kind of point at a word and it automatically translates.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
you highlight
That's
the
really
word,
nice.
and that is so useful for reading articles. Sometimes if I'm reading a Russian article, I highlight a word.
I
And
love it when Google's like, do you want us to translate this page for you? Do
Yeah,
I
yeah,
look
yeah.
like an amateur to you?
yeah, I don't like it when it translates the pages. It makes me feel inferior. Yeah. But let us know, guys, in the comments section what your favorite translation app is, or favorite, I guess you could say, context resource. Maybe you could say lexical resource.
If we don't limit ourselves to translation apps only, what are your apps to learn a language that you use? Your favorite, maybe?
Well, let's start with for beginners. So for beginners, Duolingo is great for
Yes.
beginners.
Yeah.
Well,
but-
Duolingo's
oh,
great in
yeah.
general. I used to hate it. I used to call it a psychotic owl because it used to be horrible.
Yeah.
With absolutely nonsense sentences. But within the last, let's say, 5, 7, 8 years, they've done a great job now.
They have,
So now
yeah.
I'm using Duolingo for my Spanish as an additional tool. So I have my classes twice a week. You know, I still use a lot of other resources. But Duolingo, since it is, you know, a part of their policy, you know, the repetition, the constant repetition, these words stuck in your head whether you like it or not. So,
They
and
do.
thanks to Duolingo, I finally remember the words that I could not remember, for the love of God, really. The simple ones, what's annoying. So yeah, I like Duolingo now.
Well, for
I
most
love
of you
it.
listening to this podcast, that you're probably at an intermediate or higher level. And yeah, it would be difficult to understand this podcast at a beginner level for sure.
But Duolingo is actually good for any level these days.
I've never tried it at a higher level. Tell me.
Because I have a friend who's like upper intermediate in German, and she uses Duolingo German.
Oh, cool.
Oh, whoa.
So because now Duolingo has all aspects from beginner to advanced.
Whoa.
It's just you have different sentences, different stories and everything. So she's
Maybe I
using
should try it for Russian then. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, why
I
not?
think.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, English
At
to
least
Russian.
English, German, some languages like Spanish, they have a huge program from beginner to advanced. Maybe some languages that are not as worked.
Well, I used I used Duolingo for Dutch. It was really good for beginner Dutch. But like I've said in previous podcasts, that language doesn't really come in handy. And
Oh, yeah.
when you go to the Netherlands, everyone just says, come on, can you just speak English?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was really useful. I learned a lot of words via that app. But I started using, well, I tried this. It's kind of, I wouldn't call it an app, but it's a website, Russian Pod 101. It's not just for Russian, it's for other languages too. So you type in the language pod 101, and it's been really,
Podcasts.
yeah, it's really good. It's really useful.
nice.
I heard it recommended. I think maybe they might have an app form of it. But
For English, I also used to use Lingualeo. It used to be so adorable. And the thing is that first you take a test and you point out what your interests are. So they kind of give you materials depending on what you like or not like. And I used it when I was back when I was a student, you know, for some exam preparation. So it has some materials for IELTS, for TOEFL, and so on. It was cool. It was cool. I'm kind of curious. You know, we are doing it the beginning of 2023. So right in the time where there is a huge advancement and uprise of artificial intelligence,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that give it another, well, I do not know, half a year, and the level of apps for language learning will skyrocket, and we're going to have something entirely different and brand new.
That's amazing.
So listen to this podcast while you can, you know, or it doesn't become outdated.
yeah, but well, it's quite interesting. So I'm sure there always will be some need for like live tuition, or at least you need to, if you're learning a language, of course you can speak to a robot. I'm sure, but
I mean, no,
there will come a point. I don't know if it's going to be quite so advanced in the next 50 years where it will pick up on every single idiom. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it might get to that level.
It depends on your objective, because people will always want another person. That's true. But to learn yourself, like we do with Duolingo and everything, I'm pretty sure it's going to be unbelievable.
Well, if you come from up north and people use all these crazy idioms that nobody in the South understands.
It's AI. AI will be able to understand that. Because
it will pick up
they
on
probably are already.
So so this is one of the advantages of those future apps. Oh, I can't wait, actually. It's going to boost my Spanish. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess part of being with a person is the gestures as well and the intonation. I guess, but apps will probably get to that point.
It's not, sometimes it's not really even the gestures and the intonation, but when you choose a teacher, you choose the personality.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I've had teachers like who have their flaws, and I know that, like being their colleague, but they have such fantastic personality. I don't care. I just have classes with them because they're so cool.
Psychologists more.
Well, English classes very often are like therapy sessions. Two for the price of one.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, especially on high levels like B2.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a therapy session.
Yeah.
Really.
And most of my students are these levels, So like every day I work as a therapist, actually.
Yeah, maybe I need to get a qualification for
I think we already have one,
Yeah, we have experience
just on the
for
paper.
sure. Yeah. Well, would you ever pay for apps? This is another question I'd like to ask you because we didn't discuss this in the podcast. Personally, I'm quite stingy. But do you pay for apps? Exactly.
Well, if I really like the app, I do pay for it. Why not? Why not to support the the people who made it? So
yeah, for music, for films. Yes, I pay for Kinepoisk, I pay for Yandex Music, I pay for VK Music. So it's basically movies and music. Yeah.
Is Duolingo completely free?
I think, yeah.
It is free, but you still can have a like premium version, which is $13. Well, with taxes, it's $13.18 per month. Because I'm currently using premium, just because what it does, it collects all the mistakes you made, and you can have like personalized lessons, and that's what I like.
Oh, that's nice.
And so I am a person who is paying for my apps because I have been kind of developing this respect to other people's intellectual property that I should have.
Of course.
So that's why, I'm paying. And then again, sometimes I just have to make a choice. Like, am I ready to pay this, or am I not like in such a need of this app? That's So you make priorities. But I am paying for my, let's say, Duolingo money tracking app. So like, I keep track of my finances.
Yeah.
What else? Well, Bank of America app, unfortunately, charges me.
You have to pay for it.
Unless you have more than a certain amount of money coming into your
It
account.
is kind of sad. In America, you have to pay for your
That's
bank.
strange.
Well, then what else? Microsoft Office, and some other things. So yeah, in total, the apps come around $50 per month, I think.
That's okay.
So it's like
Not so
bearable,
much.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, can I just criticize the American banks again? Sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it. I'm gonna join you on this one. I'm gonna join you. I'm not a huge fan of Bank of America, but
recently Bank of America and a few other banks, they because they're kind of running short on cash, they've been temporarily taking money out of customers' accounts and making it really difficult for customers to take money out. It's on YouTube everywhere. And
I'm not a huge fan of Bank of America app in general, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well,
It really is what it is.
maybe they might sue me when I go back to America for saying this. But to be honest, they can't sue me because it's all over YouTube. People are standing outside of the banks and saying, hey, give me my money back. And sometimes it's due to errors with the apps itself, or it could be due to a variety of issues. But yeah, I have this lesson plan for students about economics and money. And one of the I show a video to the students about amazing mistakes made on banking apps and made on people's accounts. And this one bank helped this lady become a billionaire for a day because there was a mistake with the numbers. I don't know if it was a problem with the app itself or if it was a
Could be
problem with.
anything.
Yeah. But she was a billionaire for a day.
Cool. Bank of America is
Nice experience, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
their app is something. So yeah. What about you, Benjamin? Wait a second.
Do I pay
Do
for
you
apps
pay?
sometimes? Yeah, I'm trying to think. What was the last app I paid for? I mean, I'd pay for a language learning app. I paid a while ago because I'm really stingy. A while
Oh,
ago,
as you've said.
I paid for a Russian flashcard app a long time ago. But there is this great flashcard app called Brainscape. Have you heard of Brainscape?
I think you might have mentioned that.
Yeah, I use this to keep track of my Russian vocabulary. Unfortunately, my iPhone 5 can't keep up to date with it. But you can pay. It's quite expensive, actually. I think it's like $120 a year.
Hey, what now?
Yeah, it's expensive,
I
but
don't like paying annually. It kind of feels like too much.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
mean,
is
it's
pretty heavy.
$10 pounds a month, yeah, or even less.
Like this sounds bearable, but 120 per year kind of sounds like
it's a lot.
no.
Yeah.
It's more digestible if you look at it in a monthly way.
Yeah.
But this app is not just used by language learners, it's used by people revising a lot of
Anything.
information. For instance, medical students.
Oh, yeah.
The way I found out about this app was I was watching a YouTube video of this medical student and he said, oh, you can also use it for learning languages as well. And I jumped on it. But basically, you have to make your own flashcards and it takes a long time to make your own flashcards. But there are many apps like Brainscape. There's also Anki app. Maybe you've heard of Anki.
Yeah, I used it.
Quizlets.
Yeah.
Oh, Quizlet.
And I love Quizlet. I use it with my students.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and it's not just flashcards. They have different
Yeah.
Tasks and
functionalities.
games.
Yeah.
I mean, Quizlet, do you have to pay for that sometimes?
As a teacher, yes. So I used to pay for it, but now
Again.
kind of.
Oh, they
It's like
don't, they don't accept payments from
Yeah.
Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's true.
WordWall, I love it as well. Yeah, I use it
But
for.
you also have like a limited amount of things you can create in WordWall
yeah,
for free.
but there's a way.
Oh.
There's a way.
I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So a lot of our listeners, of course, are living in Russia and it's difficult to pay for apps on the App Store, but you can get a VPN. Well, I would be really careful about getting VPNs, especially free VPNs, because if you pay for something on a free VPN, maybe someone can steal your card details and it can be really tricky.
So
And
one more point about like security of the apps. Like make sure.
so definitely get a good trusted app that you see advertised everywhere. I mean, my mum, she uses ExpressVPN.
I use Mulvad.
ExpressVPN. I mean, there's many different VPNs like
Yeah, a lot.
Surfshark, a few other good ones. But I sometimes use ExpressVPN if I want to watch something that is only available in the UK. And it's safe that way. But yeah, be careful if you're going to buy something on the App Store and you use a free VPN. I just don't recommend it at all.
Well, I would love to hear more about our listeners, actually. So, guys, what are the apps that you cannot live without?
Yay.
What are the apps that you can live without? So, and what about your position towards paying for apps? So, do you do that, or do you try to find some sort of free alternative to whatever you need? So, let us know.
Are you stingy like me? Let us know in the comments section. Be sure to use that section to practice your writing skills. It's really important that you do that. And of course, check out the vocabulary list that accompanies this podcast. So guys, this is it. Bye for now. I'll
See ya.
See ya.
See you another time.
Bye.